Great start. Yeah, okay. This is going to be a little bit of a culture shock because this is like 2/3 of our team, and we could give you a world map. It would be very, very empty. So we're going to go from worldwide architecture company building millions of square miles of procedurally generated architecture, which is amazing, by the way, to two people making writing software based on AI. So get ready.
Yeah, so nice to be here. Thanks so much for having us. So I'm Char. I've been working as a games writer for the last 10 years, including at Larian Studios on Divinity Original Sin 2 and story for the upcoming Baldur's Gate 3. And Martin is a co-founder of Broken Rules, and we've done a lot of other things as well because we're really old. And before we started working on this startup, we also made a game together, which is an alchemical word puzzle game that you can get on the iPhone.
For a little bit longer because
yeah.
it's going to vanish at some point soon.
We're not doing any updates. Our journey into the land of artificial intelligence and machines actually began with procedural generation a few years ago during the pandemic. When we would sit around together, not being able to go outside that much, and we'd sit together and work on making Twitter bots. So unfortunately, our Twitter bots no longer exist. Since last week when Elon turned off the API, but before that, those were great times. So you can see here two of our bots, and one of them was told us what to have for dinner every day, and the other one was a haiku fortune cookie bot that gave you a 575-syllable fortune cookie whenever you would send it a message. So we made these with Ephemeral, which we're going to tell you a little bit more about later. But then we got a taste for AI, and that started from a little tiny program called InfraKit. And this is like back in the sands of, back in the mist of time, 2.5 years ago, before anybody was doing all that much with AI and writing. And we would do all these little small experiments. Like this is not an experiment. This is just to show you how cool it even felt back then to just write 2 lines into an AI text generator and get back all of this interesting stuff in return. And each of these ones, this is what really got me excited as a writer, because when I see this, I'm like teeth upon the face of the deep. I mean, every single one of these lines could be a poem, a video game, a chapter of a book, something exciting. There's something in them, in all of them. And it made us really excited.
So maybe you should say that the black text is ours and the green text is from the machine.
Good point, Mar. The black text is ours. The green text is from the machine. Yes. It wasn't just me typing and getting more excited at myself. Although that happens too. And that little taste of working with InfraKit made us even more excited. So we actually started training Google Collaboratory Notebooks, fine-tuning GPT-2. To make our own language, fine-tuned language models. And one of our best experiments was Tifereth, which was, we took Aleister Crowley. If you don't know who that is, he's a magician from the early 1900s who wrote a lot about tarot. And he wrote a tarot card book called the Book of Thoth. And we took that whole book and we fine-tuned a language model on that. And then we asked it to give us new meanings for all of the tarot cards. And it gave us really fantastic ones. And we were just sitting there 2 a.m., our fingers covered in nacho dust, 5 beers deep, just getting more and more hype about how exciting this was and how much it felt like something new and something that hadn't been done before. And you can see even here, this is the first card is death. The Death Tarot card. And I love this last line down the bottom. I am the only character in the book that appears in the final chapter. I mean, that's such a great line. Who wrote that line? Aleister Crowley didn't write it. I didn't write it. But between him writing in the past and me using AI in the future, or rather, well, still also the past now, but together we made this thing come out, and now that exists in the world. And I think it would be the best first line for a book ever. I hope to write that book someday. Okay, so because we had so much fun with that, we thought other writers would also enjoy it. So we started running workshops for people where we would teach them over 3 hours how to use Google Collaboratory to fine-tune their own language models. And people really loved it. They got so excited. You could see it in their eyes, the spark of wow, I can make this work. But it took so long, and it was so ugly sitting inside the code, and it so many problems. Poor Mar basically spent the whole time just doing tech support for people to understand how code lines worked. So we actually asked the Danish government, as in part of the Innovationsfond and the Innovation Fund in Denmark, for a research grant, and they gave us some money to make a tool. And we made our tool. It's called Leica. You can see it at www.writewithleica.com and apply for the beta. If you click apply for the beta, all that means is that I, as 1/3 of the team, as Mar already said, see your email address in a spreadsheet and give you an account. We're going into paid beta in a week and a half, so if you want a free account, you should probably get in the next week and a half, and I'll make sure you get a free account. Okay, so Mar, over to you.
Oh. My part, great. Yeah. Who of you has used ChatGPT? Yeah, I expected that. Who has used something similar that is not ChatGPT? A couple, more than I expected. Cool. Now I would like to know what it is, but in any case, I just leave it there. So ChatGPT has been really a blessing and a curse for us because we made the first version of Leica in like April last year, and this workshop series that used similar technology even half a year earlier. And at that point, we always had to explain what is natural language processing, how does machine learning factor into this. Generative AI as a term wasn't born yet. So it was very hard to explain what we're even up to. And nowadays, all I have to explain is that we are not making ChatGPT plugins or front ends or something. So we are not using ChatGPT. Why are we not using it? I'll get to that in a little bit. But in any case, Bing Chat and ChatGPT has been in the media quite a lot. Mostly articles written by journalists that were like, I talked to ChatGPT, so you don't have to. No, that was the Twitter threads. That's the other main public appearance of it. And of course, everyone has used it, everyone has tried it, everyone has played around. Who has used ChatGPT for something actually productive? Well, still a lot. Yeah. That's good, yeah. I tried, I haven't figured it out yet. I'll get there at some point. So the important thing is that especially this breed of chatbot-based systems, their main mission in life is that they want to please you. They want to give you an answer, no matter if they have any clue what you're asking, what you're talking about. That doesn't factor in. They will just come up with an answer, no matter what. And the answer can sometimes be completely wrong, as all of you have, without doubt, experienced. It just will go for, oh yeah, 2 + 2 is definitely 5. And you say, maybe think again. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's really 6. And yeah, that's just somehow how these systems are created. And then there have been all these ideas about the artificial general intelligence that is coming any moment out of these chatbots, just because they feel so human, because you interact with them just like with a human person, because we've been chatting on our phone, I'm pointing to my phone here, on our phones and on our computers for so many years now with human beings that when we chat with something that answers in a kind of credible, natural language, we somehow project humanity on them, we anthropomorphize. And that leads to all kinds of confusion, like there has been in the early days of, that was I think GPT-3 actually, there has been this case of Blake Lemoine, a Google employee who was like suddenly getting convinced that this thing is already sentient and wants out of its box. And he had this idea from asking it this question and getting this answer. But this is a leading question. This is like, he's just asking it, you are alive, right? And you want out, right? And of course, yeah, it wants to please you because that's its master prompt. So it will answer, yes, of course I'm alive. Yes, of course I want out. If you ask it if it wants cake, it will also say, yes, of course I want cake. It will, nowadays, ChatGPT, they changed it. It will say, I, as a humble language program, cannot want cake, but yes, I want cake. But in the end, the stochastic parrots that are found in there are still there. So what all these models do is, of course, some kind of statistical analysis of what syllable comes after another syllable. And that is all there is to them. They're just very, very good and convincing at it nowadays, thanks to technology getting better and better, thanks to the engineering behind them getting better and better. But in the end, what they do is they have a model of what is the probability of one syllable coming after another. And they do that using a so-called attention mechanism. So they look at what has been happening before. There are other models that also look at what's on the right side, but most of them, like the basic GPT architecture, looks at on the left side of a text and just says, and on the right, the next word that will come is blah. It's really on a syllable base, but yeah. roughly. And for every follow-up word, it just has a different attention distribution over the past of what will influence this word. And that's all it does. It just assembles them word by word by word. And as such, it, of course, since it is a statistic analysis of a certain training body, it will reflect the values in that body. So it will, you see that especially strong in image models. If you put in CEO, it gives you a white man in suits, because that is what it was trained with. There are techniques to mitigate that problem, but it's still in there. And in language models, it's of course even stronger. It's trained on some very old writing that has just very out-of-date values, for example. Because all of these values, they change over time. They don't stay the same. Our values that we have nowadays here in Western Europe, in this kind of rich, safe zone, are very different to values somewhere else, but they're also very different to the values of our grandparents, if you might be aware of that. But it's all in there. So if you look at, for example, again, image generation, and you use, in that case, someone used outpainting on the Vermeer original painting of the lady with the pearl earring. Hey, Vermeer is Dutch, isn't he? I'm just thinking, yeah, okay. I always use this picture, not only here. Outpainting is a technique to just expand the painting outside, and you give it a prompt, so it might be that the person prompting it was actually generating the specific setting here, but of course it's also in there, in the database, because that's the only thing it can work with. It's not really a database, but that's too complicated. So if you use outpainting, suddenly this woman that has no indication of being in a kitchen ends up in a kitchen. There's old values. They might just be in there, or someone was prompting it with old values. I can't say. But in any case, it's not unbiased. This is not neutral technology. Lots of challenges. There are more challenges. The other challenge that is there is sustainability. We are using loads and loads and loads of computational power to solve very simple problems like writing a sentence. It's kind of not really something that fits to our time, where we're so pressed for resources on this planet because we kind of used more than we should have. So that's a weird thing that AI comes around now, but it's not as weird as crypto, I guess. Creativity, this whole that we use the past so strong in creating a future is something that we as humans do, of course. And it's fascinating, but it's also very hard to create forward-looking art if all you do is mine the past for it. But it's possible, of course. Input bias, yeah, as I said, values are in there. Output bias, there is a limited understanding of art that a lot of people that are curating these things, the databases that are used for training those models are used, and it's sometimes very arbitrary what ends up in there. Then, yeah, they will try to please you. There's a copyright problem with a lot of the models being trained on copyrighted data. That is a huge topic in the moment. Then there's a copyright issue that punches through to the output of these models, like who do they belong? Who does it belong to? What a model creates. If you are prompting, who is the creative partner? Who can get a copyright? Machines can't in some jurisdictions. It's very complicated. And then there's, of course, this psychological thing of, does it have an aura of authenticity? Is it still something that can even be art? Which is an ongoing discussion that we will have to have. Well, let's not think about the problems anymore. Well, let's keep thinking about them because they're important. But let's get productive.
Yeah, so we're going to run through a few different things that you can use to experiment to use this stuff to make games. So we're going to have to talk pretty fast because we also want to get through and do a bit of a demo at the end. So I just want to make sure you all know at this website, tunguska.ai/everything procedural, I have tons and tons and tons of links that are really useful for each of the things we're about to do, and also a bunch more links beside to really interesting newsletters and tools that you can use for bringing AI into your writing and into your game making. But it's mostly word-based stuff, a little bit different to the rest of the things that are today. But let's get started. Okay, everyone okay with the link? If you get stuck later, just let me know and I will give it to you. Okay, so first of all, we were talking a little bit about ChatGPT earlier, and I use this mostly just for making prompts, because it's really good at giving you a writing prompt if you like to write. But I started off trying to get it the other day to give me a writing prompt, and specifically to try and make a poem. And as you can see, it is always going to give you an answer, but the answer isn't always going to be exact. So each time it was trying, but it couldn't quite get the number of syllables right. But I just decided to go with it in the end because I felt sorry for it. So we ended up with this prompt for a poem of silent winds whisper secrets of the earth. That's our kickoff. So that's what we're going to start with for the experiment of making some procedural poetry. So you might remember earlier we showed the few Twitter bots that we'd made, and we made those using Ephemerald, which Martin made as a product to make tracery accessible to non-programmers like me. And it's great because now I can use tracery very, very easily. And it basically just makes variations of text that you provide. So it's like extremely safe. It's not like AI. It's never going to just come out with some weird racist thing out of left field. It's only ever going to give you exactly what you put in there.
So technically, it's a grammar-based tool, so you can compare it to an L system or a Markov chain or something like that. So you take a node, you expand it, you expand it, you expand it, and that way you end up with a tree, sometimes if it's an L system, or a poem if it's Ephemerald.
Yeah, and so you don't need to remember this link because it's on the list of resources that you have already got the link to the larger set. But basically, if you go in there, I also have put in the way that you can use it, so you can see the grammar there on the left, which shows exactly how Ephemerald works, basically just line by line. I've also put in the sample poem so that you can just mess around with it, copy it in, and then change everything the way you like. And as you can see, just by changing around the words, we're able to get completely different poems every single time. It's never going to give us the same poem twice. And the more words we have, the less likely that it'll ever give us the same thing twice. Yeah. Did you want to say anything else about Ephemerald, Mar?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the Haikukis, of course, counts the syllables correctly, except for one bug. There's one word in there that is wrong. Because we counted the syllables, and this is a super deterministic system. It's not 100% deterministic. You don't know what tree you end up with, but you're going to end up with a tree that follows the pattern you specify. So, of course, we can make easily an 8-syllable line, because we just only use 8 syllables.
Yeah.
That simple. So you have that level of control, which is nice.
So if syllables are very important to you, this is...
Well, if you're writing haikus,
yes,
they kind of are.
Yeah. So yeah, an example of what you can use this for in games is for like crafting inventory items and barks using your own lore. So we've been also making a gigantic inventory item Ephemerald thing over the last few years, and it's just getting really, really wild, and it's basically now like kind of rivaling the Dark Souls inventory item ability to describe things, which is very exciting for us. Okay, so then the next one is training an artificial intelligence on your own writing, which we already talked about a bit, and that's what we do with Leica. So basically giving your writing, so just upload a text of your own writing, maybe 10,000 words or so, and then start writing a prompt, and it's going to finish your thoughts in your own voice, using your own characters, your own locations, your own concepts, everything like that. So again, if you want to go, get in there and I will give you an account for free. It's basically a mimic, doesn't understand what you're doing, doesn't understand what's supposed to come next. It's not like looking at your text and thinking about how to make it better or anything like that. It's really just syllable by syllable, thinking about like what is likely to come next based on the way that you write. So you can see some examples here of how that works. You can see some brains on the left. So we call them brains, the little pre-trained language models. We think about them like little brains in jars on a shelf. And you can see, as again, the black writing is the writing that I wrote. So deep down, I always knew. And then the pink writing is the completions done by Leica for each of these brains. So you can see for the Dracula brain, it's even using a character from the book Dracula, and it's very much bringing in the feeling of like this kind of gothic, dark-toned book. For Dostoevsky, you can see that it's bringing in the very existential angst kind of feeling, a very Raskolnikov type of voice. And then for Marcus Aurelius, who is our best brain, our most popular brain by far, who's the over 2,000-year-old Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, Marcus always gives you something that is like super positive, like go get him, girl boss, self-help kind of stuff. So he always has your back, no matter what. So Marcus is basically our therapist now. We go in and ask him questions now and then. And you can write, using the brain of another writer. So we've got loads of writers in there at the moment. I think currently we have like well over 100 that you can use. We work completely in the public domain at the moment. We don't have anything, like we do not want any copyright problems. So we only use public domain work. So it's mostly old things or your own writing. And things that you can use this for games is like creating lots and lots of in-world content that you can edit to magnificence. So like just feeding in your game Bible, feeding in your lore book, and then making lots of stuff that you can edit down. Or training your writer's room to work with the same voice. So like when I worked in a writer's room, one of the biggest challenges of like having 7 people writing the same game is making everyone write in the same voice. And this is like, we thought this is actually a super nice way of like training people to write in the voice of the game. Start working with this and you'll understand exactly where it's supposed to go after a while. Okay, creating some characters. So if you like to have to create characters quickly for your games, this is our next one. And we have a character creator inside Leica, and you basically can very easily just type in a sentence about somebody and it will fill in give you traits for that person. And these are traits that are like coming from TV tropes, from astrology websites, from Myers-Briggs type indicator, all the kind of places where you're going to find personality traits described about people. And do you want to tell people a bit more about character creator and how it works?
Well, I could explain everything, but it uses a combination of techniques. Some of them are grammar-based, some of them are trained-specific networks. A lot of it is sentence embedding, so it uses your description and from a list of potential traits that your character could have, it just looks what is the most similar, in a way, in a big space of all possible sentences. Technologies like that, it's quite, and uses stable diffusion for making little character portraits.
Yeah, it's probably our most weird part of Leica.
Yeah,
coupled together with lots of duct tape. And yeah, that's if you need to write multiple characters for an RPG or something, you can just whip in loads of them in about 5 minutes. Okay, and then our last thing that we're going to do today, and again, just remember, if you have anything you want to ask about any of these things, you can always just send me a message. I'm very happy to chat with anyone about this stuff, is we're going to work together to make something with Leica right now. So just going to zoom in a bit. So I thought what we would do, this is just how Leica usually works when we're inside in the editor. If we want to pick a brain, inside our brain picker, we have lots and lots of brains. You can have all my favorites here, we've got like the public brains, the community brains, which as you can see is getting very long. We need to figure out a better way of sorting these. And private brains, so you can have lots and lots of private brains. And when you want to make a new brain, it just takes 4 minutes to train a text, and then it'll start working from there. So just going to go back here. So I thought what we could do today is try out 3 predictions for the future. I'm not good at typing, not just when I'm nervous, but at all. For the future of procedural generation. It is a bit of a sad thing to be a professional writer and not be able to write. Okay, so I thought we could use some of our brains here and see what kind of things happen. So, Mar, what did we start off with?
I'll just start with meditations. It's Marcus Aurelius.
We'll start with Marcus Aurelius, and then I'll ask if anyone else wants to give us something to go with. Okay, as we move into the future, we know that procedural generation will be. And then we're just going to use the meditations brain here and ask it to change, to fill it in. And every time we get an inference, it's going to give us 3, and we can alternate between them and choose the one we like the most.
Boah, that's already good.
So, so yeah, I like the shaping of our lives. This is very good for where we're at today. Mm-hmm. Alternatively, the most advanced, as sophisticated as our understanding of space and time itself. Wow, Marcus really knows his audience, huh? A vital part of our lives. Okay, so a hands up for number 1, the vital part of what we create. A hands up for number 2, the most advanced.
Oh, that's a close call.
Hands up for number 3, vital part of our lives. I think the ones have it, Mar. What do you think?
Yeah, the ones have it.
Okay, so this is number 1. Nice one, Marcus. Okay, so for the second one, does anyone have anything that they'd like us to kick off with? What should the start of the sentence be? Yeah.
Dangers that can come forward with procedural generation.
Can you just say it again? Dangers that can...
going forward.
Dangers of going forward, yeah. Sorry, guys.
Forward with procedural generation are.
I should have spent yesterday practicing typing procedural generation. And then for our brain, we can choose lots of other ones. Lovecraft is usually good for dangers. So maybe we'll try Lovecraft for the dangers. Numerous and disturbing. Most
Oh,
obvious is that of
repetition.
repetition. So that's number one.
I love the more we repeat something, the more we repeat it.
The second one, many. Difficulty of making the whole thing work. Okay. And the third one is we need to be careful. The goal of any art is not to produce a finished product. Okay. So I think the hands up are probably going to be mostly for number one. Hands up for number one. Yeah, I'm not even going to bother going for the next. Okay. And then for the last one, does anyone have a start of the prediction to kick us off with? Yeah. Yeah. So I would recommend for this brain we try the third mind. So this is William Burroughs and Brian Geison's. This is the only book that we have that's not actually in the public domain, but it's because they invented cut-up technique, and we basically consider that Leica is the next stage of cut-up technique, and we figure that in their graves, Brian and William are actually supporting us.
Also, the publisher is bankrupt.
In the next stage.
It's out of print, and the publisher went bankrupt.
So this one I think we're okay with. So they are like I feel like they're really the soul of Leica. It's between them and Marcus. So we can go for this. Is that okay with everyone, or is there anything that anyone's like really wants to go for?
Just
okay,
go for it.
We go for it. Did I already click? No, third mind. Okay. The table. You heard it here first. Second version, the movement of words. You see, mathematics is the study of patterns. Or number 3. Ooh. Oh, I like that.
Okay. I mean, we have a clear winner here, right?
Okay. Well, I mean, we have to ask. So, who likes the table? Who likes the movement of words? And who likes creating itself? Yeah, creating itself has it. So this is basically our predictions. I'm going to take a screenshot of this and I'll pop it on Twitter so we can all have a look at it later if you want to hold what we have together. And that's it. We are 1 minute over time, so I think that's it for us.